Introduced as an enterprise architect for Harmony Gold. That's the position I was holding before the session. But I'm actually now an innovation research and development lead for Harmony Gold Mining. And before I can start with my task of the day, it's just unfortunate that other people are still outside and others already left. I always say, you know what, it's so unfortunate that in our society, when people think of ICT, engineering and all that, they never look at us as people that can slay and look beautiful. And here today we are sitting with all these beautiful ladies and gentlemen, and they are in ICT actually. And you know what, I think we need to give ourselves a round of applause. We really look beautiful. Maybe something that we need to go and sell out there to the youngsters to say we can actually slay within the scientific industry. It's not just about the technicalities and being dirty and all that. Okay, coming from Harmony Gold Mining, what we do as Harmony Gold Mining, we are just mining gold, processing gold. That's what we are doing. And we also own one of the deepest mine in the world, in Mponeng. We operate in South Africa and Australia as Harmony Gold Mine. So I will allow my fellow panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Baljeet. I know that he has spoken before, but that was early in the morning when he started. So I think it's very proper that he introduces herself again so that we do remember who is she.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
No. Yes.
Hello, yes. I decided to have this mic because I just found the other one too cumbersome. Thank you. So I'm Baljeet and I head up the supply chain strategy for Oracle. I cover EMEA. So I think I'm just looking forward to participating in your panel. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Baljeet. Then I'll move to Roger to introduce himself.
Thank you, Chair. So my name is Roger Hislop. I'm on the board of an organization called the IoT Industry Council. It's a trade representative body that we set up a number of years ago to drive IoT into the South African customer space by hopefully, sort of to an extent, matchmaking the amazing technologies and the amazing brains that we have in the IoT technology space with the market and the needs for it. My day job, I'm the Energy Management Systems Executive at Circuit Breaker Industries, CBI, the guys that if you open your distribution board, you're almost certain to see. So we're a bit of an interesting character in the South African manufacturing landscape because we're one of the few very large-scale precision technology manufacturers that's fully, totally, and utterly proudly South African. So plastic pellets, steel, copper comes in one side of the factory, and circuit breakers and other products come out the other. So we're a manufacturing concern, but we're also now becoming a managed services business because we're launching an energy management systems capability with devices with a whole cloud back end. So that's kind of why I'm here today, wearing both hats. One is to drive IoT and the adoption of IoT and cloud technology. The other one is to try give you some thoughts around how and why we would use cloud and IoT technology. So thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you, Roger. And then I will move to Brynn to introduce herself.
Thank you. My name is Brynn Gerson. I am the senior manager for a division of Dube Tradeport called Dube IConnect. It is a outward-focused IConnect or IT division. We look after data centers and telecommunications for Dube Tradeport. Dube Tradeport is the center of what's called the Durban Aerotropolis, effectively. So we're a city that's being built around the airport, and we're eventually going grow into a smart city that is designed specifically for the needs of the citizens in the KZN community. The division that I run is called Dube IConnect. It's data centers specific for our tenants, making IT and telecommunications and data center services into effectively a fifth utility, as you have power, sanitation, water, etc. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about today.
Oh, thank you very much, Brynn. It's quite interesting in our panel if you look at the people that we have. We have someone coming from a software industry that is actually providing services to our manufacturing industries, and also someone coming from a manufacturing industry, also from the power industry, from an electrical industry, and also from the trade point of view. And the question will be to one to say, why am I saying it's interesting? Is that, whenever we look at what we are doing every day, we look at manufacturing, you only think of tangible products that we produce and sell and all that. But eventually, if you look at everything that we do go hands in hands. I always tell doctors to say, when they ask, what are you guys doing in IT, to say, the very same thing that you are doing in the operation room is what we are doing. We do framework, methods, operations. At the end of the day, we save the life of those things that we are working with. So that being the case, I'm very happy to have the panel members that I have. But in terms of our panel discussion today, we'll be focusing on cloud computing, looking more essential to the future of manufacturing industry. And if you remember at the beginning when we started today, the first moderator took us through where they started with when fiber. And at the time when they started, it was that fiber was known as something that is more of food. And now here we are as well, talking of cloud computing. And when you talk clouds, the only thing that we knew when we were in primary and all that was more of that cloud is more in geography and nothing else in technology that we think about as cloud. But here we are talking cloud computing today. So that being the case, our panel members are going to take us through a number of their success stories, challenges, and the good things within the technology of cloud computing. That being the case, I will come back to my panel members or panelists, starting with you, Baljeet, just to tell us a bit about, if you were just to tell us more about, in developing your cloud strategy from an Oracle point of view, what were the challenges and benefits in developing your strategy, especially focusing mostly on the manufacturing industry in terms of how did you guys go about coming up with a strategy that is specifically meant for the manufacturing industry, taking into consideration that in the manufacturing industry, we are always overprotective around ESG. And if something new comes, it's not always easy just to jump over into the new technologies.
Thank you so much. So with regard to the Oracle Cloud strategy, first of all, our Oracle Cloud, it's the lunch talking.
Nice.
I had my dessert, that's what it was. Only drive, it was fine. I hope that the duplication of listening to this. Okay, so our cloud strategy is really meant for all industries. So what we mean by Oracle Cloud strategy, what I talked about this morning is all about digital transformation. And what is it that we're looking for in digital transformation? Is really automation, resilience, agility, flexibility, mobility, security, and automation. So, and all of that is really taken and underpinned by an infrastructure which is really security is pivotal. And the cloud strategy is all about, gone are the days, or going are the days where you have the on-prem business platform where it's very, very costly to maintain that. And I'm sure those of you have got kind of on-premise business platforms, you know that customizations become an elephant in the room because you never have time to take up the next upgrade because your customizations are so rigid and inflexible that you just cannot take up the new functionality. And plus you're paying for your infrastructure cost, your application cost, and that's really kind of, coming back to sustainability later, you're not helping the planet there. So what the Oracle Cloud strategies, we're taking away all that from you. We're managing your infrastructure, we're managing your application with a subscription. So that's what is all you pay, and I call it as switch the lights off and switch the lights on. It's a pay as you go. And so these applications, as I was saying earlier this morning, they're built bottom up, they're new applications. Well, I've been in Oracle for 25 years, and the cloud was born about 12 years ago, and this is when these applications came about. And honestly, it's all about driving, we're fit to drive this transformation which we're all talking about today, and giving the impetus to organizations to embrace the latest and the greatest of technologies. Now that said, we also have got, on top of my mind, I think we've got 72 data centers around the globe, and we've got one data center in South Africa as well, and you're very immediately going to be hosting your SaaS applications. If I answer your question about manufacturing, what is it that we have for manufacturing? And I alluded on to the fact that how the manufacturing companies were so impacted by the disruption. So for manufacturing, it's really kind of saying, okay, it's about helping them to overcome their challenges. And I think there was a gentleman in the room who was saying that manufacturing is so kind of inflexible and dated systems that they have got. So our job, so for example, if I was to engage with a manufacturing customer, and it's all about understanding their challenges and also how does the Oracle platform help them. It's not like the gentleman was saying, it's not rip and replace. Because manufacturing, you cannot rip and replace. It's the methodology of how you take the customer to the cloud. It's about baby steps. I call them baby steps. Understanding you're not breaking the system, you're not breaking the ongoing system. It's how do you actually innovate on the edge. And plus, in terms of what the platform gives you, the agility, flexibility, mobility, real-time information, and the platform needs to be enabled to embrace. Today we're talking about specifically manufacturing, smart factories. You cannot have a manufacturing system if it's got inflexible system to embrace the technology, to become smarter. And that's what the cloud strategy is. So it's kind of tailored to industries, specifically for, as I said, for manufacturing. I do find, and you're absolutely really spot on, what you're saying is that manufacturing industries are very reluctant to take on that journey of transformation because there is the element of unknown and kind of fear about security, etc. But our job is now really to kind of how do we actually engage with them and take them to the journey of transformation.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Belgium. As you were saying that it's not about the kind of an industry for Oracle in terms of cloud computing. It's about the strategy that can be able to work to make sure that an industry there's agility, innovation, and automation, taking into consideration that there must be value for money in what we're going to be bringing up with the strategy. However, Dr. Roger, if we look at the good strategy that has been developed and all that, as Helgi has already alluded to say that, is about how do you move a manufacturing industry from where we are to the cloud. I don't know what's happening up there, but I heard that with the cloud is a bit different because you cannot move it like those boxes that you used to have with servers and all that. But then how do we get into the cloud and be comfortable? How would you move us to get there from the manufacturing industry?
So I think back to maybe a year ago, I was reasonably new on the CBI team. I was reasonably new on the Exco. I come from a telecoms background. Everybody else there pretty much comes from a manufacturing production background. And the operations exec, we're having a discussion about something, and he wasn't looking at me, but I knew he was looking at me. And basically he said, if you're not from the manufacturing background, stay out of manufacturing. And that's a reality. In manufacturing, you don't mess with something that's working, because you've got systems, they're stamping out something, they're assembling something, maybe it's a continuous process, but you don't mess with it if it's working, because if you mess with something that's working, it means you're not producing what you want to sell, and if you can't sell it, you're not making money. Catastrophe. So this made me think of a book that I've been quite a champion of recently. It's called Jobs to be Done. So it came out of Clayton Christensen's Fertile Mind. He's kind of one of the dons of innovation. And it was basically, what are you trying to do? Stop complicating things. What are you trying to do? So in manufacturing, you've probably got an MRP. And in our case, our MRP, it costs us very little because it runs on an AS 400. Bulletproof, absolutely bulletproof. But you don't mess with it, because the job to be done there hasn't changed in 20 years. Your MRP needs to make sure that the right materials are at the right place at the right time, systems are up, that machines are working, that your utility of the machines is what it needs to be. But then surrounding that, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So if you don't mess with your MRP, there's a bunch of stuff you probably should be messing with. And in many manufacturing concerns, supply chain is something that can be moved to the cloud, because supply chain is something you can kind of fiddle with, but the impact isn't right here, right now. The machines don't stop. Human resources, acquiring talent, managing talent, these are all things that are absolutely critical, and that's where you need to be up at the leading edge of technology. Because the way we manage people now and the way we managed people 20 years ago is not the same, the pressures, the challenges. Similarly, finance, procurement. In most manufacturing concerns, procurement is extremely key, but you have to be very careful that your procurement is as tight and lean as it can be, because the current problems that we're all experiencing in manufacturing around just getting the right materials into the country at any kind of useful price. So there's a number of areas around manufacturing where you can and should look at, is there a good cloud solution that we can move into? When you started to get your digital transformation journey on track and well understood, maybe then you can kind of have a look at your MRPs and start to go, well, maybe that can be moved into the cloud. And then you can do it, now putting my IoT Council hat on, you can do that quite elegantly, because in the modern world of IoT, there's not a massive threshold you have to reach before you can do something useful with an IoT device. You can have one device that's telling you whether the lights are on or off. You don't have to have 10,000 devices to get a useful outcome from that. And IoT and the cloud are the perfect mixture, because you've got a low-cost device, you don't have a particularly high threshold to reach to do something useful. At the same time, with the cloud, you can try something new, you can experiment, it's consumption-based, pay-as-you-go, so you can try new things. So what you can do is you can go, okay, I've got some machines, there's a number of companies in South Africa that do this very well. You strip the machine, you rebuild it to improve uptime, and at the same time you start putting some IoT capability into it. Vibration sensors, power condition sensors, and you can feed those to the cloud. So now you've got the data, you're generating the data, it's somewhere useful, you can do something innovative with it, and then you can start to go, right, now how can I tie this data together with my MRP? And if my MRP is no longer capable because it's, I think it was end of life, probably about 15 years ago in one particular company's case. It still does a great job, but now integrating it now becomes a problem. And to Baljeet's point around a legacy on-prem system, the problem isn't whether or not it works, the problem is, can it let you move forward? And that's where you can start to go, right, I've got this useful data, I can do something useful with it in and of itself. Now I can start to look at my legacy systems and go, is there an integration path open to me? If there's not, okay, then I need to start really seriously looking at sort of the flexibility of MRP in the cloud.
If I may, thank you for that. I think it was a great point that you made. If I may just elaborate on that. You know, from my experience with manufacturing customers, as I said, how do you make them in the comfort zone? And you said it beautifully. Innovate at the edge. Why disrupt? It's supply chain you can. Warehouse management, logistics, these modules you can. And the lady sitting there, Mara, you made a very good point in your discussion in terms of where's the value, right? So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You are touching deeper into it more than I have expected. And you ask yourself to say, if we are saying all these things that we are discussing here, when we leave this room, then what next? Anyway, coming back to the panel, Brynn, if we were to go back, we have been talking a lot about the pandemic, COVID, and all that. But you, coming from Dube, to be specific, in KZN in Durban, we are talking cloud computing today. And you guys had a disaster of floods and everything and all that. And I'm just thinking to say, when it comes to cloud computing, the pandemic and all the floods that were happening in KZN and all that, if you can just tell us, or maybe just elaborate a bit more in terms of the challenges in terms of network, electricity, in terms of load shedding that we are always having it every day and all that. How did you guys, or how would you ensure that there's always connectivity regardless of any other disaster that we may have? Because I would want to believe that you guys have actually handled it very well, because I don't remember it being reported of Dube shutting down for many months because of the floods that we actually experienced and all that.
Ours is quite a simple solution. We own our own infrastructure, and we run our own fiber and our own network in a resilient pattern, and we own our own cloud. So that was quite easy to answer. But basically, building in the resilience. As Roger said, you've got services and things that you need that are critical to the business. And for us, I said that IT is a utility to our clients. And a lot of our clients are manufacturing entities. One of our zones is a trade zone, and it's built specifically for manufacturing. It is small to medium manufacturing, but it is high tech a lot of the time, which means that our clients are sending instruction over the wire to the factories. So they're coming from the internet, often from other countries, into South Africa, and that internet and that connectivity and that cloud service needs to be up. So we build resilience into everything. We build geographical resilience into everything. So north-south geographical resilience. We duplicate data centers, and we duplicate telecommunications, and we duplicate entry points into the zone. And I think that resilience and that duplication of effort in the telecommunications component is critical to us. I don't necessarily think in a manufacturing world that is going to be your problem. It is my problem, because I run a zone. So I think making sure that as a consumer of cloud, that is available to you, that your disaster recovery is in place, and your disaster recovery plans are in place, and that they're tested, and that you're on that path to making sure that the right cloud in the right space for you, for the right reason or for the right purpose. And as one of the previous panelists said earlier on, not everything should be put into the cloud, not everything should be digitized, and not everything should be migrated from the current service or current way it is operating. So only moving what you're needing to digitize, and only moving what you should be into the cloud. That's going to be critical to success.
No, thank you very much about that. And Baljeet, if I were to go back to you again, Oracle is actually a big organization, and the maturity level on cloud computing, I would like to assume that is actually on a high maturity level. But given some of the panel discussions today, and one thing that also came up quite a lot is Africa is still a developing continent, let alone South Africa. In terms of cloud computing from Oracle and other industries within manufacturing and so forth, how do you find us contributing in the knowledge from our education system to our communities, ourselves growing in a manufacturing industry using cloud computing, or not necessarily cloud computing traditional as it is, but from an Oracle point of view? In terms of the strategy that we have come up with, how do you find us contributing in the knowledge of cloud computing?
Wow, that's a tough question. Maybe like you say, I'll pass it on to my
Because
audience.
it seems like it's something we are all bringing it up as something that in the education system that we have, whether it's South Africa or in our continent as a whole, but what are we contributing? It's something else to say it needs to change. But what is it that we think that we really have to initiate if we were to start, if we were to be given a project when we leave this room?
Excellent question. I have to have a little pause.
I can take that.
So, I'm joking.
Good.
So, you know, I'm an African by birth. So I relate to this, and I do a lot of work in Africa. And whilst I was coming here, and I was saying, you know, in terms of looking, and you know, I've been working with customers in this region for the last 11 years. And the earlier times, it was very difficult to get the customers to even engage with us for the cloud because there was this nervousness. Oh no, I can't share my data. This is, you know, security levels and etc. But specifically for South Africa, what I've heard this morning from the panelists, speakers, you know, in all of the African continent, you know, it is the energy level, the enthusiasm is there, but it's still slow. Okay, it'll take time for people to really accelerate that, and I think today we've heard. And in South Africa, I think it's also to do with the electricity which you talked about is load shedding. Honestly, I didn't know what load shedding was, and I just kind of think we were getting load somewhere. So it's the electricity. So, and again, I think that can be achieved better when you talk about, you know, organizations become, you know, really have their own renewable energy, right? Which is going to be, I believe, is going to be the imminent future. And then you'll have their own energies to actually power up and, you know, be on the cloud, etc. So there is a great potential, and I think from what I've heard this morning, really great potential, great things. And one of the, you know, I felt was, again, is a skill set. This morning when I listened to the panelists, MEMSA, I mean, the skill sets that they're actually really, you know, empowering the students is really incredible, because all of that is really paving the way to digitalization in Africa, and specifically in South Africa today. So I think it's only a matter of time that, you know, the technology is there. What do you call it? You have tools in the box. And how do we actually apply those tools to kind of step up the journey? So I think definitely, to answer your question, yes, it's there. It's going to take time, but I think it will happen because the focus is there. The lady this morning talked about, you know, the strategies and policies that needs to be implemented, and once that's there, I think the continent is good to go.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Baljeet. And on this question, I think I would like to take it to all our panelists, because I think we have many ideas. If I had the opportunity, I could even take it to the floor so that everyone can actually give up some ideas. Maybe when we leave this room is something that you can look into in terms of implementation. So Roger, I will pose the same question to you to say, if now, when we leave this room, we're to be given an opportunity to start a project to say, we have the knowledge. Some of us here, we are in ICT, but that's not where we started. Some of us may be industrial engineers, electronic engineers, but you ended up finding yourself within ICT, doing some good job within ICT and all that. What is it that you think that when we live here is something that we can do in looking into cloud computing, changing the system of education in our country?
The one thing that bothers me most about the startup industry, the tech innovation, tech incubator type of space, kind of summer school for students, is that it's very much focused around apps and essentially consumer technology. The crying need in South Africa and the rest of the world is for business systems, and businesses will pay for business systems. If you generate some kind of funky app, good luck. Maybe you'll make $1 billion, maybe you'll make nothing. At least in developing business software, there's a clear market need with people who've got money to spend on it. So I think that the best policy that government or the education sector could drive towards is to encourage young entrepreneurial people to look at the business sector rather than the consumer tech sector to develop technologies, particularly because through the advantage of the global hyperscaler cloud providers and some of the smaller niche players, is that they've got all the tools that they could need to put together something really, really comprehensive. So the big problem for a startup in manufacturing is industrialization. There's piles of inventors out there. They came up with a good idea. They can make some prototypes. But how do you take that prototype from something interesting that you can look at to a product that you can manufacture and push onto shelves? The tech space doesn't have that problem. They don't have that enormous threshold to clear before they can actually have a successful startup business. So I think these two things together, the advantage of all of the amazing tools that cloud providers can make available to you, plus a much stronger focus on encouraging people to develop tech products, tech solutions in the enterprise space, particularly ones that can help drive truly value-generating companies. And by truly value-generating companies, I, of course, mean manufacturers.
Oh, no, thank you very much, Roger, about that. One of the things that I picked up from you is that much as we do have our education system, but it should also focus more on teaching the young ones to industrialize the prototypes that they are coming up with, all the good innovation ideas that they are coming up with, so that they can see the value, they can see themselves as the contributors to the larger market, into the economy of our country, and also as well as looking at moving away from looking at, okay, I can develop a plan, I can develop an app, possibly I'll be a millionaire, just like another person that has done it, but look more into, even if it were to be a plan, how can you innovate it and industrialize it for commercial purpose? And I'll move now to you, Brynn, to give us your thoughts around that.
Okay, so one of the panelists in a previous panel said that it's critical from an education perspective to educate for business. And that is one of the challenges that we do have in academia, is that we educate for academia, not educating for the business requirement. So as part of my role, I sit in a number of different steering committees. One of them is in innovation in KZN and in Durban specifically. And we focus on creating innovation challenges that allow innovation, not just in apps, because people always think innovation is build an app, but in doing things like finding a way to move cargo, or give you an idea, and it's not something that came out of this, but we own and operate a cargo terminal. And cargo it's an airport cargo terminal, it's the King Shaka cargo terminal. And cargo is often stacked like this. So to identify the cargo, we've got something called an ETV. So you've got to go up to identify the cargo. Now, if you got a drone, you could fly up and identify the cargo and say it's over there. And then it's just a picking and packing. Now that's a very smart technology forward way of identifying cargo, but somebody had to innovate to think of that, which they have done. Okay, and that's not an app. Okay, now the other steering committee I sit on is, as part of the Durban Aerotropolis, we've created a tertiary education facility called Aerotropolis Institute Africa, and in conjunction with one of the bigger universities in South Africa, or in KZN, we're developing tertiary education courses, including master classes, but bachelor's degrees, honors degrees, and PhDs for a smart city. Now, smart doesn't necessarily mean IT. It could mean self-healing cement. It could mean smart as in sustainable. It could mean smart as in building roads to where the workforce is. And it could be smart as in educating people for the work requirements from the business community. And that's kind of what we're looking at as KZN. I kind of do need to point out that Dube Tradeport falls under Department of Economic Development and Tourism and Agriculture, and that create jobs, and that's how we're looking at it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Brynn. I think we have come to the end of our panel discussion, and that being the case, I would like to just say something to everyone that is here, to say that if you, taking advantage of being one of the last groups, I suppose, to say, if you look at everyone that was here in the panel discussions and the other speakers that were giving us a keynote, I think there's something very common among ourselves, whereby we want to see the difference within South Africa. But in terms of taking our initiatives into reality and all that, there could be a number of challenges and all that. Maybe as we live here in this session, if we can just give 1 hour every month to every initiative that we have to contribute into something that can benefit our youth in the country, we'll never know what will come out of that. That being said, we did network and all that. If we can just allow to explore more in those initiatives and all that, I'm sure we'll make a huge difference. At the end of the day, the knowledge that we have sitting here is bigger than when we leave that door, what people know about us. Like I said when we started, that it's so amazing that how ICT engineers and scientists are known by our society, and look at how beautiful we are. So let's take that knowledge that we have, we beautify it and take it out to those that don't know and come up with something, so that next time when we meet, we can say, when we met this day today here, we did discuss all these kind of things and what came out of that. Whoever is going to lead the initiative, it will come natural. I know that, and thank you very much.
Thank you.